A lot of white women told me to die. From the time I was 11 to 13, a lot of white women DM me being like, die. And I'd be like, oh God. And I was 11 and I went really, really hard against gay marriage.
Who are your followers?
Like old men who are 40. I got really, really into God. I believed God was real. I was told by my parents that I was going to be a pastor.
As a young man who just lost his dad, you should be angry.
If it's not all true, then none of it's true. Just like seeing that progression of having a Republican Facebook page called Obama's Gay to getting arrested at a Black Lives Matter rally. A lot of YouTube videos.
Welcome to Doomscroll. I'm your host, Joshua Citarella. My guest is comedian Peter James Fowler. He joins us to discuss his highly influential political meme account that he ran at age 11.
I had a Facebook, just like when I was in 4th grade. I got out to there pretty early, and then I started posting things, and it became like too problematic. Like people would DM me that I knew, and it created like when I would be outside, people would talk to my parents and be like, hey, he's posting these things. And so I was I should...
What kind of things are we talking about here?
Who's the guy on Fox that like, before Tucker? Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly?
Bill O'Reilly,
I was a big Bill O'Reilly stan when I was 10 years old, dude.
Yeah.
Bro, I loved him, dude. I didn't know what he was saying, but I thought I did. And then like I kind of decided to make a different Facebook that nobody knew would be me because I was getting like already having problems. And so I made this Facebook. It sounds so insane to talk about, but it was called Obama's Gay. And it was like, instead of the A, it was at, which I was pretty, now when I look back on it, I'm like, how nobody saw this and was like, this kid's kind of really funny. But it was called Obama's Gay. And I kind of just started posting things on there. And then like I told some of my friends followed me, which is like how I would say it got like a little traction. Because back in the day in Facebook, it was like not what it is today. Like there was no like algorithm pushing you into like the mainstream of like people are like clicking on this so you get to it. So
you had the organic growth of 4th grade.
I had to do it the original way, bro, through word of mouth. So I made it. I started just posting like really chill. I remember some of my posts. I remember I was like, this new Tucker Carlson guy is really great, which is really funny that like considering who he became, I was like, this young guy's got fucking fired, dude. I would post shit like, yo, you all tuning into Bill O'Reilly tonight? And people would like it and share, and then they'd be like, this was great, and then we talk about it. And then I kind of started getting into like, things started to happen that I thought were affecting me as I got a little older. And I kind of got like upset, and that became my avenue to like...
What were the things that were affecting you?
Michelle Obama changed school lunches to make them healthy. And they took away our snack bar. They took away our like Hot Pockets. Every Friday would be Hot Pocket Day, and they took that away. And I was really, really pissed. So for a while there, I just went after Michelle. And this was before all the conspiracy theories about Michelle. I didn't invent them. I wasn't on the money, but I was going after her. I remember tweeting like, give me Hot Pockets, or posting on Facebook, give me Hot Pockets or give me death. That was a thing I posted. And somehow people connected to it, and that kind of got shared to people, which is so interesting. It's like Twitter. I didn't even have a Twitter then. That was like getting shared around. I don't remember what kind of reaction it got, but I remember it like got a pretty decent reaction, which is so funny to me that give me Hot Pockets or give me death kind of like blew up. And then the gay marriage thing happened, and I was 11, and I went really, really hard against gay marriage. Only because I would say I was raised very Christian. Like my dad was a pastor and my stepdad was a pastor.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was raised that if you were gonna get gay married, you were like going to hell. And at that point I really believed in hell. And I was like, we can't allow this because they're gonna go to hell.
Right.
So I posted, I was like upset about the Supreme Court ruling. I don't remember what I said. I don't think it was anything crazy, but I was just like really bummed about this new Supreme Court ruling. And then people would comment, and then I would engage with them. And at this point, it was just me and my mom and my siblings. And I didn't have a dad at this point. He died like a couple years earlier. That's kind of when I started getting like really into it. And so I went to a different school than everybody else, and I went later. So I would have the day kind of like a couple extra hours of computer space alone. So I would post these things. And I went hard after gay marriage, and I remember feeling like super guilty about it because at the time I had an extreme addiction to lesbian porn. So I like would post about it, but I was such a hypocrite because then immediately after posting about gay marriage, I would just go look up lesbian porn, dude. And it was like, took me a while to really realize what I was doing. Plus, like, the religious guilt started to set in of, like, you're watching, of all porn, lesbian porn.
Wow.
But I didn't want to see any men. I was, like, too young for that. You know what I mean? I feel like lesbian porn is the entry to all men, young men.
Yes, that's true.
It took me a while before I was like, okay, I'm ready to see a dick, you know? So I started watching that, and then I would, like, kind of just do these posts about, like, I remember Jesse Waters I was really supporting. I would just argue with people too. Like, people, adults started to DM me.
Are these all like text posts? Are you doing memes even at this point? Like,
I would post pictures, like embarrassing pictures that like I would find on the internet of like Obama in like a weird situation, or like Michelle looking crazy. And I would kind of like comment under the things, like what my thoughts. Sometimes I would do that, but it was a lot of just like, that wasn't that popular. This was like right when Obama got in, kind of, and then the next couple of years. This was early. Yeah. There wasn't like
2008. Are we talking about?
I would say.
When were you in fourth grade? 2010. Okay.
I would say 2010. So it kind of wasn't, which is so crazy. There wasn't even a share button, really, for a while. When I first started posting on Facebook when I was 10, there was no share button, and then they created the share button, and that kind of helped me out a lot because I was getting no attention on my actual page. The only people that were reacting were the people that were like in my friend group already. I look back on it and I'm like, I can remember the things that I think are funny, like really, you know what I mean, at the end of the day. I also, I remember, this is a true story, I mowed lawns for a living when I was like, not for a living, I was like 10 years old. But I would do it, and we were like really poor, and I would use it, for allowance. But I would use it to like buy my school lunches because my dad had just died, so we didn't have a lot of money, and I would mow lawns. And then this Hispanic guy came to my neighborhood and started mowing the lawns for cheaper than I was, and he took all my lawn mowing jobs, and he was like 30, and I was like literally like 11 or 12 at this point probably, and I lost all my mowing jobs. So I started to just like go hard against immigration, like really hard, because I was like, this is insane. And I remember that really helped me out, I feel like, because people, still don't know why, but in Arizona, especially where I was at, like they really care about immigration. Like even if I talk to my mom today, she'll be like, oh, these immigrants. And I'm like, you have no immigrants around you. You live like completely separated. But she'll like, for some reason, and even in, you know, what's going on now, they always are talking about it. And that helped me blow up. And I remember just being like, very hard against immigration. I don't quite remember the specific post. I remember posting one time Mexicans are stealing our jobs, which is like so fire. And what's even funnier is like adults. Now that I think back to it, adults were like loving this.
Yeah. Who is DMing you? Who are your followers?
Like old men who are 40 who have like American flag pictures on there. And then I would get liberal followers too that would like come at me, which is really funny too, because I would just argue back with them. I'd look at their page and like say shit about them. I'd be like, your wife's ugly, or like shit like that. And they would get so mad at me. And I don't think they understood that there's like a child on the other line, you know what I mean? Like on the receiving end of this.
Right, because you don't have like, there's not a profile picture.
No,
there's just nothing. An anonymous account.
Yeah, there's nothing about it.
Ostensibly, someone thinks this is, they're talking about political issues, they're following elections, Supreme Court decisions. They think this is a grown adult, and they don't realize it's a child thought leader.
Yeah, the future, dude.
Adults are taking political advice from.
Yeah. And
how many followers, just to put a size on this account, like what's the reach of some of these posts?
I said in the TikTok video I had 30 because I was trying to amp it up, but I probably had like 9 or 10,000 at the time as a kid. Which
organic growth on Facebook, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't have that many followers now as a stand-up comedian, so I'm like, now looking back, I'm like, that was a pretty good move for me. I ended up like kind of stopping. I didn't end up liking it because I would get so many DMs. I started getting DMs, and that was like really uncomfortable and weird to me. Also, the hate DMs were weird. It was really hard as like an 11-year-old for someone to call you a name, and I wasn't able to justify like, oh, this is a fake account and they're crazy and you're also crazy. I just would take that personal. So it ended up becoming like, I would feel bad. I would feel bad about the things I would post. And it's something I kept away from my family even because of their reaction to my original Facebook page.
Yeah.
I was like really scared about it. And it was funny to me at the time. And it was like not even super funny, but it was like something I believed in. And it was an avenue for me to post my beliefs. Why I needed that when I was 11, I don't know. But at the time, it was like super kind of helpful to me and just gave me something to do just in my day-to-day of just being like, watch the news. And then like, I would go talk to my family about it and they'd be like, Peter, we don't give a fuck. So I would be like, I'm going to go post on my Facebook and watch what happens. So I don't know. When I look back on it, it's weird. And I'm like, kind of, I don't have a negative reaction to it. When I tell some people this, they kind of react like, especially in New York City where I live, even when I'm doing that joke, talking about it, I'll get crowds that'll like immediately turn on me, or people that I tell that immediately turn on me. And I've kind of always been like, was it as bad? Like, does that reaction that they give you, is it justified? But I don't know, because I'm like, I was 11 and I don't count anything that I did when I was 11, like, seriously.
Yeah, well, this is the problem with liberals, is that they're blaming you as an 11-year-old for using an exploit in the bad design of social media, rather than looking at this as an indictment of boomer conservative politics, that it's being led by a fucking fourth grader.
Yeah.
That is the level of political comprehension.
Yeah.
It's actually a critique that's on their side, but the liberals are just so ideologically bitter, feeling both in charge and persecuted at the same time, that they're unable to make sense of it. Our audience is going to find this very interesting and will definitely be on your side. So
okay,
you don't have to worry about that kind of,
even if they're not like, reaction. You know, maybe I don't like really care. If they didn't like me, I would be like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I was 11. That's what I say. But I also think that people don't give me the credit of like understanding that like I grew up, my dad was a pastor of a church, evangelical church. There's pictures of me when I'm like 2 wearing a Bush sticker on my back. Yeah. On my dad's back, I got a big ass Bush sticker. Like, I was raised in a way that God is real and George Bush is the savior of this society.
Well, so tell us then, because I think if people don't have the historical memory of this period, it was common for big evangelical churches to, in some cases, like hold up an image of the president. You know, we think of this separation of church and state in the United States, and that was very much not the case in the kind of environment
to evangelical Christians to this day, politics and their religion are tied in. Yeah. But that's because they believe that the Antichrist is coming. Yeah. And we have to like, even though it says it's coming and there's nothing you can do about it, they still are like actively working. So I was told by my dad that like if Obama got into office and beat McCain, that the world was over. Like it was going to end. Yeah. So as a kid, your dad is telling you that. You're just like, oh my God, we got to stop Obama. Right. Which is so funny because now I'm older and I'm like, he wasn't that bad. And that was a hard thing to go through too, because you're raised this way and you believe it. And then you're even going to the point of like, I would argue with anybody, anytime, anywhere about politics, even though I was so off. Yeah. I would be like, I would argue with Christians who were like, didn't believe in evolution. I would like argue with teachers who would be like, the earth is like, I don't know how many billion years old. And I would be like, actually, it's like 5,000 years old. And they would be like, they couldn't even say anything to me because in school they didn't want to be like, no, your religious beliefs are nonsense, you know? So they would just be like, oh, that's your belief. So like, I kind of was, nobody would check me really. And I kind of just got in this role of like, okay, I can argue with these people. And then my dad passed away and he was like the guy that I would watch this shit with. We would sit and we'd watch the news like every night. And then I kind of lost that. And I think that's where that Facebook came into play, is where I was like, now I have an avenue to talk about this. Because
you got to finish his work.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, he wasn't working towards it, but he definitely like was very much like evangelical pastor. And he was a good guy too. He was complicated because we were in a small town called Yarnell, Arizona. And he had a church of like, I don't know, 20, 30 people in the church. And he's a complicated guy because he's so Republican. But I remember too, when I was a kid, we found out that in our town there was a KKK, a Ku Klux Klan meeting in the town.
What the fuck?
Yeah, dude. That's like how redneck this was. There's like 5,000 people in the town, maybe less, maybe like 1,000, 2,000. And he found out there was a KKK meeting. And this is a Republican guy. And he went into the next Sunday, he went on like his podium or whatever the church thing is called. And he said to his like people, he was like, if you go to that meeting, if you're a part of the KKK, like, I don't want you at this church because like that is bad. And then we lost like half of our denomination.
Holy shit.
From that. And he didn't expect that at all. My mom didn't expect that. So they were kind of like, we just lost half of our money for our bills. And I remember this because it's like a thing my family still talks about to this day of like how crazy it was. And it kind of makes me look at like it makes me think of just conservatives as like, they're so serious about some things that are ridiculous, but he's not a bad guy because of like, I don't know many conservative people who would be willing to do that.
Right.
And his hate for Obama wasn't...
Give up half your income for your principles.
Yeah. And like the hate that I was told for Obama wasn't because he was black. And that's what a lot of people, even in New York, will be like, you guys don't like him because he's black. And it's like, no, it's purely ideological of like, we don't like him because he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
That's it. They probably would have loved to have Obama be a Republican. They would have taken him in a second. It's definitely something that... It's like, I don't have that time to explain that to people when they, a crowd. Yeah. To be like, actually, no, you're taking this the wrong way when I make a joke about Michelle Obama when I was 11,
Well, there's very few people in today's society that move between different cultural or social spheres. So the idea that someone could be raised in a red household or a blue household and then vote differently in their adulthood, very possible, maybe just a generation ago. Even my family, one of my parents was a Republican, one was a Democrat. They agreed on enough that it didn't matter. Those weren't, meaningful disputes, and that they couldn't share a space. And now people get kicked out of Thanksgiving dinner if they voted the wrong way.
Yeah.
We're in an increasingly polarized society where people, in the case you're describing, can't even extend empathy to children.
Yeah.
To children who have, in some cases, let's say reprehensible views. I've interviewed people who have a lot more radical politics than you did, who are just around your same age. People with tens of thousands of followers, who's a narco-capitalist 12-year-old, very influential, a lot of radical people following them, posting all the time. Largely Instagram, memes, different, Twitter, different types of communities. But I think your story is actually increasingly common. And when I first started doing this work, I think I published the book in 2018. People didn't fucking believe me. They thought I made up all the accounts, like 50 accounts, 100 accounts. That it was like, oh, this is Josh's weird art project that I made all these fake accounts who are like into politics and also like teenagers. It's like, no, I just see them post a selfie on the bus to school. That's how I knew this person was 12.
That's crazy.
So I think maybe people are just not yet grasping, the type of experience you had. They're not yet sure how to digest that, but it's going to become increasingly common.
Yeah. It's really crazy that, I guess you're right. So some people don't change their political views, so maybe they don't think other people can. I also, in New York, I think a lot of people think that if I say, oh, I used to be Republican, they think I'm just saying I'm liberal now to fit in, which I understand, because I do think a lot of people do that. But for me, like, my experience with becoming, if you don't mind me becoming liberal, it's like, and when I say liberal, I don't even mean Democrat. I just mean like completely detached. I vote Democrat, but I'm not very involved in politics today at all.
That's probably the right response. There's no meaningful political say, like, why be involved? Yeah,
I mean, I vote, but what am I going to do? Watch politics all year just to go make one decision at the end of the, you know what I mean? It's like, also, it's been pretty boring recently. So I'm like, what's happening right now? But for me, man, coming out of that, like, Republican ideology was, I got really, really into God. I believed God was real. I was told by my parents that I was going to be a pastor. And then I got a little older and I just started kind of realizing like inaccuracies, like some religious things didn't make sense to me, like there's just, and the hypocrisy too was interesting to me, that like once I got old enough to actually read the Bible and understand the Bible, I was like, oh, you guys don't live this way at all. And you incorporate politics into it. It's supposed to be completely separated. And then I stopped believing in God probably when I was around like 16. And then I was like, if there's no God, then like a lot of these moral reasons we've been fighting for are kind of like pointless, because their whole ideology is, why can't there be abortion? Because God. So if there's no God, then you're like, why can't we have abortion? We can do whatever we want. You know what I mean? So I kind of just left that. I became an atheist, would argue with my family about, politics any chance I got. I became like a aggressive atheist, you know what I mean? Where I would, also know who got me? Stephen Colbert. got me to really like...
Because he's a Catholic.
Yeah. Huh. But he used to play this character where he was like a Republican guy on Comedy Central. Right. I would watch that as a kid and not catch that he was joking. I'd be like, this guy is fire, dude. Yeah. Which is so crazy. And then I caught on that he was joking because I would send it to my mom, dude. And my mom would be like, this guy's great. This guy's so fucking funny. But then I got older and I was like, oh, wow, he's totally joking. And then I started watching Stewart, which is interesting too. And that kind of just opened me up to be like, I would research these things about like, oh my God, he's right. Like, why are we? Why? And then I started doing a lot of drugs. I started doing a lot of shrooms. Doing acid.
You're a teenager now?
Yeah, probably like 17 around this time. And I'm kind of just like, why would we be against it? Like you just start breaking these ideals that you've held and you have no reason to hold them. It's just like a belief you have where I would be like, we can't let illegal immigrants in. And they'd be like, why? And I'd be like,
God.
Yeah, God.
Yeah. How does that one fit in with this?
Doesn't fit anywhere in it. It's just racism. That one's just straight up racism.
The irony is that a lot of the immigrants are very religious.
Yeah, very more religious than the people here.
Let me ask you though. So, one of the reasons why I relate to your story, I care about the things you're telling me. My family was very religious growing up, and we were Catholic. My parents ultimately left the Catholic Church after the rampant child abuse.
Really,
that was a big issue for them.
Yeah.
They left. They were raised Catholic. They went to Catholic school.
Wow.
Their whole family brought up in it, and they just thought that was so abhorrent, unforgivable, that the institution they trusted the most would be single-handedly the most responsible for the most evil in the world. They couldn't do that anymore. Today, my dad is a deacon.
Wow, in a Catholic church? Oh, Episcopal.
Episcopal. Not Catholic anymore, but Episcopal service, very similar to the Catholic service. Yeah, but they're, very much culturally progressive. They've got, lesbian pastors and all this sorts of stuff. So very different experience than the Catholic Church, but it looks similar.
I go to church every now and then, mostly because I got sober like a year ago, and I kind of had to like tap into like some belief that I could get sober.
Yeah.
And I go, and I still am like, I'm like, man, this is so weird, dude. I'm like, this is so weird. I've been going to Catholic churches, and I went to a Catholic church on like 59th, and I'm so raised Christian that there was like a trans altar person, and I really had to be like, that's okay. I had to be like, I love that.
You've still
I caught myself being like, I love that. And I'm like, why are you saying to yourself that you love that? It's just like, but I was like, oh, my family would freak right now if they saw that. And they also too believe, evangelicals believe the Catholic Church is like the most evil institution of all time.
Right. No,
which
they
it kind of is, dude. If you look back at like,
I think abusing kids is kind of the most.
Yeah, abusing kids is not cool.
Involvement with the Catholic Church is a guaranteed ticket to hell. That's confirmed. Your family though is conservative leaning, obviously.
Oh yeah, still.
So what kind of because you had mentioned before that you were posting stuff under your own personal account around age 10.
Yeah. That
caused alarm for people in your community, people who knew your parents. Like, what kind of stuff would you be posting that was, because they sound pretty conservative from what you've described.
Yeah.
What made people alarmed about it? Was just your age and the type of content that you were posting about, to be involved in politics at all?
The age and the like aggression behind it. I was like I was a little like.
It's a young man who just lost his dad. He should be angry.
Yeah, which at the time, nobody knows those things. You know what I mean? Like, even my mom. I had 6 siblings, too. So I get lost in the mix pretty easily, which is why I was able to do these things and never have any, like, attention, because my mom's working to try to keep us alive, and then my siblings are off doing their own thing. So I just remember, like, people commenting, and then my mom did say something to me at one point, and she was like, and my older sister, I have an older sister who ended up working for like the Times. She was actually, remember that scandal with Uber happened?
Which one?
It's so funny. Well, Uber got in trouble for sexual harassment. She was like the whistleblower on that. She used to work at Uber.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then she ended up becoming like the cover of Time magazine, and it like blew up, and my family was getting like all kinds of calls. But she went to college, and she left the house pretty early. By the time she was like 14, she was like out of the house and already in college. She's like a genius.
Yeah.
And she would kind of really be like on me about my post from the beginning. She was like very much like, hey, don't post that. The internet is forever. Don't post this. Don't post that. And she kind of also drew me out of like, she would send me books. She still to this day, she'll send me
Yeah.
a book,
Yep.
dude, and I'll be like, I'll read the book and I'll be like, dude, she sent me Crime and Punishment, and I read it and I thought it sucked. I was like, this book sucks, dude. It's so long. It's just, I don't know, dude. I would the whole time. But she really brought me out of that because she kind of got educated, and I would listen to her because I kind of respected her. She went off to college. She got into like University of Pennsylvania. She then worked for like all these companies, and then she ended up working at the Times around the time I was like 13, 14. And she was big, like she would message me and be like, yo, take that post off. Take that off. Take that off. And I would just like listen to her and kind of be like, okay, she's right. I went too far in that time. And then she would sometimes tell my mom, and my mom would be like, take that off. So I kind of started to get just some heat from them. And I was like, if I make my own account, nobody will know what's going on.
I see. Yeah, this is the so this is the difficulty when people are confronted harshly with in relation to their belief system. Yeah, they will often just take it into a private space, do it anonymously, or not tell the outside world of what they're doing. And so unless someone knew that you were connected to the account you were posting on, you could do all these things in secret. You know? And a lot of people, when they are challenged with their beliefs, they will learn to mimic the mannerisms of the court, or however they need to behave in the workplace, whatever they need to do to get along socially. I've interviewed a lot of people who have told me this anecdotally as well, that, you know, they live in a kind of progressive, mainstream, liberal society, but they have this repulsive, just grotesque shitposting account where they say all sorts of things that even they don't believe, but they just like a vent for their anger or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
for me, it was always
common.
like things I believed, which is even crazier. I wish it was like, I was just trying to get on people's nerves, but no, I was like, we got to talk about these things. We got to really like address them. And you know what's funny? When I left, when I kind of started to back out, I kind of felt like lost because I was
How did that process start? So you're getting these like books and links and like suggestions from your sister. You react poorly to that, but you're running this account. You're experiencing success. You have thousands of adult followers. And then how do you start to lose interest in it?
I guess I start to just kind of like. My mom remarried. She made her another pastor. I got really annoyed about that. So we're back in church after being out of church for a couple of years. My mom would still go and she'd drag us with us, but it went from being like in church every Sunday to now we're just free to do whatever we want, and now back to like a control. And like my stepdad took away my Call of Duty games, like all these things. And I went from being like free to like not free.
Yeah.
And that really upset me. And then I kind of just started to see like, I judged him as like, my dad was a pastor, but he was like he played that role really well in every minute of his life. Like you wouldn't see him have these moments that were unpastor-like, you know?
Yeah.
And my stepdad, he kind of we'd get in arguments and he would get a little wild, and I would kind of just started to really have a bad relationship with them. And then it made me look at them in a way of like, I felt like they were hypocrites. I was like, you guys are hypocrites to the core. So that kind of just made me start to leave God. Once I really was like, not believing in God. And that happened from like tons of YouTube videos. Tons of YouTube videos about evolution, like hearing, is it Richard Dawkins? Is that the guy?
Yeah, so is this around, just if I take a guess, 2012? Is this
that's probably around 2014. I kind of stopped the Facebook page.
Because there's a big like new atheist movement that is very influential in like the 20-teens. Sam Harris, Richard
Sam Harris was one of them.
So
yeah, for sure. Sam Harrison.
They're a little libertarian, and then they're a little like neocon.
Yeah.
And kind of,
I think it's Dawkins has this video of him teaching evolution to Muslim kids in a school, and he's pointing out evidence, and they're just like, no. But he has like real evidence proving to them. That
sounds like a Richard Dawkins video,
But I watched that as someone who believed in evolution, and I was able to be like, wait, he's making really good points right now. And I was raised that like, and that's where I think my family fucked up. It was like, this is Christianity. If it's not all true, then none of it's true. Like we have to defend every point of it. So if those points start falling in a little bit, you start to be like, this isn't real at all. You know what I mean? So after watching enough videos, I would watch like atheist debate, all kinds of people. And then I kind of just came to a point where I was like, none of that's real. And then I was kind of like lost, really. That's where I started doing like drugs and like, because I was like, if one thing they said is false, I felt like the rest of it was false. So I kind of just started doing whatever I want all the time, and it kind of created some chaos in my life because I was like, I didn't know how to live a life. I had thought that like if you sin, you go to hell. But then what if there's no such thing as hell? You can sin as much as you want.
Right.
And I didn't understand that like don't lie so that you can live in a better community. I didn't understand that like there were these rules to help you live in a community better. Don't steal, don't lie, don't, you know what I mean? Like all these things were to help you. I didn't understand that. So it kind of just became free range. Ended up dealing with like drug addiction over the next on and off over the next like, I don't know, up till that time I was like 24.
Wow.
Pretty just like go in it and out of it. Had no concept of how to deal with these things or that anything was wrong in my life because I just thought they were totally insane. And it's kind of sad if I'm looking back on it. So when people are like, how could you be like this when you were a kid? I'm like, you don't know what I had to go through in myself to just like relearn values and build my own value system.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do.
Right. Yeah. You don't have a map for your life. You don't know what your values are,
None.
Your morality, all of this you need to build from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was taught nothing other than Christianity and like religious politics. So if that's gone, you're just like, I got to build my own thing. And that's kind of where like the books helped. I read like Communist Manifesto and there was like a year where I was like a communist. Yeah. Which is so insane.
What year was that?
That was probably when I was like 17. I was like really into like...
A lot of 17-year-old communists.
Yeah. It's really funny now. And then that led me down to Bernie phase. That like, Bernie dude brought me into like You don't like Bernie?
No, I'm trying to like keep track of the whole arc here. The evangelical Christian, Obama's gay, age 11, new atheist to communist to Bernie Sanders. I love it.
Yeah,
I love all of it.
It's super weird. A funny thing too is after my dad died, my mom kind of had like 6 months where she was kind of an Obama supporter because we had this, where we lived, the place was trying to get us to pay flood insurance on a house that was near like kind of like a duct.
Oh, okay.
And it was like too far though. And my mom was like, I don't need to pay flood insurance because there's no way that like we should do this. So then she wrote a letter to Obama and he wrote back. Yeah, he wrote back. I'm sure like his assistant wrote it and he just signed it, but he wrote back and then the flood insurance company dropped it and they were like, we're sorry. So he probably said something to them, but he was like, it's taken care of in the letter.
Wow.
I think my mom was fucking Obama. Now that I think back to it, like Cheryl smashed Obama.
Like, look, my son, this account, we're trying to get him under control. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, she had like a period where she was like, still to this day, she'll be like, Obama wasn't that bad.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Kind of fire that he did that. Yeah.
You just write to the president and he solves your insurance problem. I mean, what age was this? You must be like 12 at this time?
Yeah, when she wrote to Obama, I'm probably like 12, 13 maybe.
And that didn't impact your views onto, No,
I was like, I thought he was from Kenya. I was big into that Trump conspiracy theory where I was like, that's something that's so interesting that people don't understand is like when they're like, oh, Republicans are conspiracy theorists. I would grow up listening to Rush Limbaugh with my dad in the car. Conspiracy theories in the Republican Party have been around for a very, very long time. And that like Rush Limbaugh was preaching, you know, Hillary's killing people, which is a conspiracy theory for sure. You know, who knows if she is? Who knows? There's no evidence. Don't look into it.
Not directly, let's say. Not personally.
Don't look into it. But that was like...
responsible for certain decisions, I might say.
Yeah. She may have killed a couple people. But yeah, it was like, that was totally okay. You know, that kind of belief system was like, conspiracy theories are all right. So then when it started amping up and Trump was like, you know, Obama, where's your birth certificate? I believe that because I'd already been introduced to like, they're lying to you. The Democrats are lying to you. Everything they're saying is not true. So for me, it was like, that's real. You know what I mean? I was like, of course he's from Kenya.
What about the types of messages and stuff you would hear from your followers, from people who were watching this account? Because this is running, it's gaining influence. A lot of times, and I've talked to people who have relayed this in the past, that you know, there are political organizations that watch these things that organically crop up in social media. They look at it against their, you know, outreach numbers for nonprofits or advertising numbers. Did anybody reach out to you to do like a sponsored post or ask you to plug something?
No. I think that was kind of before, I think that was honestly kind of before the time of like, that was a thing that was like really happening. And I would say that mine was pretty niche, so I wasn't, nobody reached out to me, but I would get messages being like, die from like people being like, a lot of white women told me to die from the time I was 11 to 13. A lot of white women DM me being like, die. And I'd be like, oh God. And then I would get messages. I had a message one time, somebody asked me to speak. They're like, can we see you speak?
Like give a public lecture?
Yeah. And I was like, no, I can't. Because I was like, I'm 11. I can't give up the jig, dude.
You would watch conservative media with your father growing up.
Constantly.
I'm guessing this is something like Fox News at the time.
Yeah, Fox News all the time too.
Bill
Talk
O'Reilly,
radio, stuff like that.
Rush Limbaugh. Yeah. And when your father passes away, you take to social media to kind of preach the conservative gospel, as it were.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to put it, for sure.
Yeah. Your posting is, vigorous, it's aggressive, it's you're 11 years old, so you're probably just repeating a lot of stuff that you saw
100%, yeah. There's no
Bill
actual...
O'Reilly. And yeah, that was kind of shock jock entertainment at the time too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That catches the attention of your family, which doesn't necessarily... They don't try to dissuade you from your beliefs. They're just a little concerned that you're posting them publicly is what it seems like.
Yeah, 100%.
And so your response...
Is so interesting, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have like an intervention. And, I mean, most people are, it's unusual to be interested in politics. Like politics is not a big part of everybody's life. It's kind of like a hobby, entertainment, something like that. It's like following a sports team more or less. But it does become concerning when, you see your family member who's posting on Facebook and they're just like saying all this crazy shit. You're like, oh, something must be going on with them emotionally.
Yeah.
That's what, is often the case. But your reaction was not to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Your reaction was to start this new account under a different name and to post to incredible influence and success and to generate a following of like adults
for my age,
who believed in these things, organically, without algorithmic recommendation, without growth hacking techniques, just like you had an organic growth of a dedicated audience that listened to your political opinions. You started to lose faith with religion. That was kind of the underpinning belief of a lot of your other conservative ideas. Yeah. And when you started to question the existence of God, it has this kind of domino effect, which I probably went through a similar thing myself where, you're raised in a religious household. One thing starts to come apart. It's just like pulling on that thread. Yeah. And then the whole fabric, the whole sweater, the whole blanket, whatever is just, it falls apart. And that sets you off on a pretty different mission where, a lot of the new atheist stuff that's on YouTube, those guys are also very pro-drug, very pro-experimentation, doing psychedelics. Yeah. It starts with weed and then you do mushrooms and DMT and all this other stuff. Yeah. And then you got into harder things.
Yeah, definitely got into just doing coke. First time I did coke, I was like 16. Just because I didn't believe anymore it was bad. I did coke before I ever did any psychedelics. Wow. Probably. Wow. And then I started doing the psychedelics. And then, that led to when I was maybe 20, 21, dabbling in like Percocets and Xanax. And then I somehow kind of stopped because of money, which is interesting. I just didn't have the money to do it. Wow. And I kind of just
might have saved your life.
And I never really had a withdrawal from Percocets when I was younger, which is interesting. And then obviously that led to when I was like 23, 24, really getting into Percocets and Xanax. Yeah. And then when I would try to stop having physical withdrawals, which I had never experienced before, where like you go mentally ill and you feel like you're dying for like a week if you don't get another one. But leaving that, like going from so conservative and so religious, when you stop believing in God, you kind of lose. It's like, how many atheist Republicans do you really know? Probably not a lot.
More
rare?
What I mean? More rare?
Yeah, very rare. Because
how many religious Democrats do you know?
Couple. More than,
what I
mean?
More than
it's
the
like,
atheist
which
Republicans,
I would always feel like that makes no sense. How can you be a Democrat when I was that age and then be pro-abortion? Right. When you're killing, in my mind, you were killing babies. Yeah. So I was like, how could you? They're insane, from my perspective at that time. And with that ideology, it makes no other sense but to vote Republican. So when you lose that ideology, it's like obviously the other guy. And I end up voting for, funny story, I was going to vote for Trump in 2017, but I didn't know you had to register. Which I'm so glad. In a weird way, dude. I'm like so glad that I didn't vote for him, because I was like, right before I was about to vote for him, they were like, "Are you registered?" And I was like, what do you mean?
I'm sorry, what?
But then I ended up voting for Biden, and I wanted Bernie, which is just crazy that I went from, even when I was like 17, I didn't believe in God anymore, but I thought, this is where the meme shit poster guy came out of me. I was like, I thought Trump was funny. I thought he was a funny guy.
Is.
Yeah.
He's
I was
funny.
like, this guy's hilarious.
Yeah.
I felt the same way that they all do, is that these others, Hillary doesn't give a fuck about me. Why would she?
She doesn't.
Yeah, she does not care.
That's true.
She doesn't care about us. So let's vote for this guy, because at least he's talking to us.
Right.
He's at least talking to us and mentioning us in his speeches. You know what I mean? He's at least like, we're involved in some way. And then I saw him do his 4 years, and then I saw him try to, what really dissuaded me was like him really kind of trying to steal the election. That for me was like, okay, I got to get involved in politics now. And I'm been a Bernie supporter, and I kind of hated the Democratic Party because they kept just being like, oh, Bernie. And then right when it happened, they'd be like, no Bernie. So that was hard for me. And then I decided to just go with Biden, because I was like, this guy's trying to actually like destroy our democracy in a way. And I think a lot of people, the reason why they're still on his side is because they think it needs to be destroyed. You know, when you talk to a Republican, they don't give a fuck that he's getting in this trouble. They do not care. They do not care that he basically started an insurrection. They do not care.
They want religious law in some cases, and that is
100%.
That's
Some
not
of them
subject to democracy. A theocratic regime,
but you can't
does
tell
not
them
have
that.
democratic inputs.
Yeah. They definitely, they won't say it ever, but there's a large percentage of the Republican Party that wants a religious like law for sure.
And you live now in New York, which is, you know, the imperial core of liberal elite society, and you know, obviously there's much more to New York, but it's very different than where you grew up.
Yeah.
So you've kind of seen a pretty wide gamut of the American experience, and sampled different sides of the political aisle, different cultures. How do you look back now and you see young people who post in the way that you used to post, with vigor, with power behind their beliefs, really thinking that, you know, they're impacting the world, they're making change, maybe not dealing with some of their personal stuff?
Yeah.
What do you think now when you scroll through your news feed and you see young people posting with such political passion? I
think it's so funny. I think it's so funny, dude. And that's the problem I have with the internet is like, and even with politics, is taking it seriously. And there'll be moments where I'm like, oh shit, this is serious. But I have such a trouble just like watching it and being like, that's so funny to me. It's a big thing like that you experience in Arizona is, you know, Arizona does have a pretty like racist underbelly to it. And something
it sounds like, from what you described, that sounds very serious.
Yeah. And it's very homophobic underbelly for sure. And it's exactly like with the same way I relate to the politics now is that like I'll make a joke about it, and then say you make a gay joke and it's between you and me, or if there's a gay person there, it's like it's lighthearted and we're just making a joke. But then you make a joke out there and like the three people around you are like, yes. And you're like, you're like, oh wait.
Yeah.
I'm not just making jokes to people that we all know we're making jokes. It's like these people are taking this shit seriously. They're not laughing because they think it's funny that you made a joke that's ridiculous. They think it's funny because they believe in the joke. And that's like the same, I feel, with the Republican system, is that like, or our political system, I should say. When I see a 12-year-old, I'm like, I laugh, but then I'm like, geez. Like, oh my God, dude. This people are getting really radicalized over the last 15 years to a level that's like scary. Like our government should take this more seriously. This is like some pre-French Revolutionary shit.
Oh, don't worry. They're very involved in the social media.
I feel like
their arms are all over this thing.
Yeah, I feel like they're like almost involved in it in a way. I was at a Black Lives Matter rally during the like George Floyd stuff was going on. I ended up getting arrested at the Black Lives Matter rally, which is really funny. I just went
what one might expect from a 11-year-old running a conservative meme page.
Yeah, But I went to go support the rally when that stuff was going on because I was getting pretty like just far away from any Republican ties whatsoever. And I kind of just thought the country was becoming insane. And I went and I got arrested. Ended up had to do a night in jail. And I was like, that's the last Black Lives Matter rally I'm going to go to because that shit was scary, dude. But like, for instance, there was during the rally, there was a group of white guys that looked like police officers marching with us. They just looked like police officers in plain clothes.
They probably were.
And I turned to them and I was like, "Oh, you're here for George Floyd?" And they just all looked at me and they were like, "No." And they just kept walking.
They just said no?
Yeah.
They didn't even pretend?
And I turned to my friends and I was like, "These are cops marching with us."
Wow.
These feel like cops marching with us. And then I watched how that all went down and it felt like a classic like Russian Soviet Union controlling both sides of the media shit because I was like, why are police officers, and they're chanting and they're like saying stuff and they're getting involved. Like to me, that was like so crazy that like they are, and in some ways you're like, okay, this stuff is happening and it's ridiculous. But then you kind of take a closer look at it and you're like, wait, this is weird. Like,
what would your friends back home say about the BLM protests?
It's a mixture, right? So I have some friends that have gone through similar experiences of me. And then I have friends who would be like, oh, it's insane. You know what I mean? Definitely if you're a hardcore Republican, you think it's like crazy. And they're very Blue Lives Matter flags. Like,
sure,
they love the cops there. They love them. My stepdad is actually like a police, what's that word? Pastor for the police. So when they're going through something, he goes and he talks to them, which is so crazy that instead of going to a therapist, they go to a pastor.
Yeah.
Where they have to see something traumatic, which is crazy to think about.
Wow.
It is really wild. But yeah, dude, coming from that, just like seeing that progression of having a Republican Facebook page called Obama's Gay to getting arrested at a Black Lives Matter rally, a lot of YouTube videos.
Well, speaking of boiling your brain in the gutter of the internet, you have recently been watching some very interesting YouTube videos, which may or may not create the experience of leaving your body, astral projection, the gateway tapes, as they are so called, which is something that both you and I are interested in.
Yeah.
And you've been messing around with these quite recently.
Yeah. So I discovered them from the Reddit CIA files. There's like a whole Reddit page where you just like click links and it takes you to like all the weird CIA files.
Analysis and assessment of the gateway process.
Yes. And if you read
Spent a lot of time with that.
It's crazy, dude. I still don't understand if he's like saying it works or if he's just reporting to like, this is what the people said it does.
Oh, he's saying it works.
Yeah.
Wayne McDonnell is the author of the document, 1984.
There's a page that's redacted.
There is the Monroe Institute, which was the research institute that carried out a lot of this initial research named after Robert Monroe, who is the founder of this process. They released, I forget the name of the page, but that was actually made public just a few years back, I think in 2020. So we now have it. Conjecture is that it was withheld from the public because it makes some statements about similarities between all world religions. Was maybe deemed too sensitive at the time. No one particularly knows. Maybe they just left it out to create intrigue.
Yeah.
A lot of different theories. But yeah, it's a very powerful document you're messing around with.
So as soon as I read it, I was like, I went and I looked it up. And then I found some tapes on YouTube. And my girlfriend thinks I'm insane, bro, because I'll just be sitting there. And there's a part where you have to hum, too. Did you get to that part?
I've done that, yeah.
Dude, I'll just be sitting in my bed going, nah. It looks insane. If anybody walked in, they'd be like, this guy's crazy, dude. But yeah, I tried a couple of them. I'm not really getting any results. But I'm so early in the process. I think it like is training you to do that.
Yeah. You got to get in a good number of hours. Usually around like when you get to focus 12, stuff starts to happen. But you'll just clock a lot of kind of their guided meditations.
What have you got to?
I've done, I don't know, I might be like 30% through it. I've also I've administered them to myself. I've done all of the, entrainment exercises.
Yeah.
I've done the chanting. I've also just, a few days in a row where I'm like working on stuff that's quiet, I just listen to like 12 hours of the binaural beats to see like what it does to my brain.
Do you think it does anything?
I feel weird. I feel weird after. And I've interviewed people who have these out-of-body experiences afterwards, but I've not been able to achieve that myself.
Okay.
I do feel the need to point out that you were ideologically programmed or deprogrammed by New Atheist videos at age 12. And now you're quite a bit older doing some self-guided research on the internet for these gateway tapes. So YouTube has been a pretty prominent topic in this so far.
It's so hard for me because I have this curiosity with just like reading weird shit that's going on. And I love the CIA files because you can just read, they just have a lot of them out on their website and you can just read them and you're like, what the fuck were they doing? It's like so crazy. And those are the ones that are released. So my part of me is like, what else is out there? But I read that one because from a YouTube video, I think I heard about it. So I read the whole thing and I was like, there's no way. And so I've been trying to do it. I can barely get through it, dude. If I'm being honest, I keep falling asleep. I told you about that earlier, dude. I was like, I just will zone out and I'll fall asleep, which is kind of fire. I've been using them a little bit as like, I need a nap right now. Let me get in the mode to take a nap. But I also did the thing where some of it's so weird for me, man. It's like, so I feel like such a weirdo being like, pretend there's a bubble around you. And then
let's just explain for people who haven't listened to this before, that don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It sounds fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the gateway process? What is
dude,
this
I
thing
can't
that
even
you're looking
explain
into?
it, but it's tapes that are, like you said, it's from the CIA. It's what the CIA studied. And I guess I don't even understand what it's doing, but it starts off being like, close your eyes, you have to meditate, it plays some sounds in your ears, and then it makes you like do mental activities almost with your brain while you're in like just laying there. And the first step is like, obviously there's like a box and you have to envision yourself putting all your energy into a box and then you have to close the box. I don't even know how to do that because I'm like, I start critiquing, am I doing this right? Because then, dude, I realized when I first did that step, I would like I'd be like, in my brain, I'd be like, okay, I'm putting all my energy in the box. And then I'd put it and then he's like, close the box. And then I was like, wait, no, he wants you to put everything in the box. So then I was like, how do I do that? Like, it's so, for me, it's like I'm not even able to understand what he's trying to get you to do. You know what I mean? And then what's the one after the box? He makes you hum, I think, while there's like a chant and breathe.
Your resonant tuning. Yes.
Yeah. Do you believe that? I don't feel any different, dude. I'm like, this is just horseshit. But I want to see, like you said, if it's actually real.
This is their description of it. We can get more granular with this, but it's changing the frequency of the oscillation of your brain waves. This is called brain entrainment. And when you get that frequency up high enough, this provokes an out-of-body experience, as was first had by Robert Monroe, who's the founder of this process. And you can move throughout the room, you can move throughout the city, you can move throughout the solar system, you can go anywhere on Earth. So the reason why this is interesting, the document itself is actually from the Department of Defense, which is then inherited by the CIA and then declassified, right? So there's a whole bunch of these different documents. There's decades and decades of what are called research into psychoenergetics. That was the government research name for it.
And is that the Men Who Stare at Goats thing?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Gondola Wish, Center Lane, Project Stargate. There's like a whole...
there's more.
Yeah, there's years and years of this stuff from the 1970s onwards. So coming into it at 1984, Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process, we're actually kind of towards the end of the story, but there's a long lineage of documents leading up to it. But the reason why the Department of Defense was so interested in this is because if you wanted to have a spy that was completely undetectable, right? They're not going to leave fingerprints, they're not going to leave a strand of hair. You just have them astral project and they observe, they like see what's written on the document, they sit on the Soviet meetings and whatever.
It's so crazy to me that they would even like sit there and take that seriously in the slightest.
Oh, they took it very seriously.
Which is weird,
They paid for it. They sent government operatives to learn the meditation process to see if they could retrieve information.
Which is the thing that made me be like, I should try this out because I feel like, hey, if the freaking CIA is like, let's try this, then it's gotta, like, these guys aren't dummies. This is one of the smartest organizations that have ever existed, or like most effective, I would say. Possibly. Maybe not most effective.
Overthrowing governments and doing coups and
so I was like,
assassinating people.
If they can overthrow a government.
Drugs and
they have the power to overthrow a government. I figured they might be right on this.
Right, right, exactly.
That's pretty, I couldn't do that. I couldn't overthrow a government. I've tried. No, but it's like weird, man, because I haven't even gotten that far in them because I keep falling asleep and I have to restart them. I really need to spend like a whole day, like you're saying, to just like listen to it. I need to buy the tapes, dude.
Well, what people do, if you're curious to experiment with it, is that they do 30-minute segments. They listen to a tape, right? You do your 30-minute meditation. You do that once per day, and you're slowly, getting yourself into the process. But what starts to happen, a lot of people do listen to it as they're falling asleep. You got to be careful about that.
Why?
Because what will frequently happen is as you're falling asleep, you're listening to the tape. Many people wake up in the middle of the night because humans are, we sleep in different phases. It's not uncommon to wake up in the middle of the night and pee or whatever. They'll wake up in the middle of the night and they'll get up out of their bed, which is sometimes described as kicking off or shoving off, and they'll turn back and see themselves asleep in the bed.
Oh, that's
so
fire.
If you listen to it before you're going to sleep, you are setting yourself up for that type of process.
I want that to happen.
It's a little scary.
That'd be sick, dude.
And
That'd be so cool.
So be aware of that you might be setting yourself up for
I think for me, it's like, because I'm sober, I want to like have a drug experience.
Yeah.
So like for me, if I saw that, I turned back and I saw my body, I'd be like, oh.
It's drugs for sober people.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, dude. But I haven't gotten to anything like trippy. The craziest thing that happened is like, when you close your eyes, you see like all these lights and shit. The lights went away, and I like zoomed into like looking at something darker. That was the weirdest thing that's happened to me. Is like focusing on something, like when you close your eyes and you have like a spot. Yeah. I would just focus on the spot, and the spot would start getting bigger, and it would like elapse my whole, and then like everything would go away.
What color was the spot?
It would be like light, a piece of light that like you close your eyes and you see it, and you just stare at it for a while, and then it would start to just get bigger and bigger and bigger until it opens up. And it would be just like darkness, which is like super weird. I experienced that, but nothing like...
In terms of visuals, people will describe green auras, seeing them at the periphery of their vision.
Ooh, that's kind of interesting. I would say that, I don't know if it's green, but I have seen like a thing open up and then become like, kind of like eclipsing my eyes when they're closed. You know what I mean? Which is kind of interesting.
That's a pretty commonly reported experience.
So you went through all the tapes?
No, I've gone through, there's like, 40, 50 hours. There's so many.
And then there's... think if you go to the end, you reach it?
People, it's different for everyone, but within, there's a certain indication that, maybe like tape 12 is a really good one to provoke the OBE, out-of-body experience, or tape 30 or whatever. There's certain things that anecdotally we can put together. There's also, to be clear, there's like many of these tapes. Like the Monroe Institute still exists. They're still doing this work. They release new tapes all the time. Yeah, it's wild. And this is, for many people now, especially who have like self-guided internet research for their beliefs, this is like a really interesting thing. I've spent the last few years talking to people who have had their political, ideological worldview shaped by content online. And here is a podcast you can listen to that will literally change your brain.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very powerful thing. And it becomes, because if you get deeper into Monroe's cosmology, there's a material plane, there's a spiritual plane.
Yeah.
Like, this is a totalizing belief system.
So weird, dude. I don't know if
I don't even know if you want to know. Okay, there's
Go ahead.
There's something called loosh. Loosh is a energy that is produced by humans.
I thought it was a sex ointment. It sounded like a lube or something.
It sounds a little slippery, yeah. And it's being extracted from human beings by non-corporeal entities above the material plane.
Loosh.
That are feeding off of mostly our negative emotions, our fears, our depression, our anxiety. And some people speculate that these non-corporeal entities, these vampiric entities, are manipulating the material plane to cause as much misery as possible because they're feeding off of our loosh.
Okay.
So when you start to hear, if you're talking about right-wing conspiracies before, when you start to hear about like the prison planet, that's loosh. Like that is the...
Where does this come from?
Earth is a battery. This comes from Robert Monroe's imagination. So
oh, wow.
He in his book, Far Journeys, he's writing about this. I think that book is published in 1985. So that's, towards the end of his career. But it was revealed to him by an entity named someone who is from somewhere that loosh exists. There's a universal supply and demand where these entities above the material plane need to get it. They can only get it from us, which is, interesting that the price theory of neoclassical economics is showing up in the astral plane, but it's none of my business. And what people then theorize after this is that Earth is a battery that is being fed on by the demiurge, who is extracting all of the negative experiences of humans to empower and enrich itself.
Sounds like straight up Christianity.
It is.
So like the demons.
So you were just trying to get a nice like meditation, some relaxation, maybe like get some drug experiences.
The demons of Lush the whole time, dude.
Exactly.
I gotta stop doing that. I'm gonna stop doing that right now, dude. I don't want to do that.
When I say, just to qualify all of this, when I say that I believe in it, what I mean is that I believe the experiences of the people who report them to me. I am skeptical that serious, high quality, high resolution information retrieval is possible.
Yeah.
I have yet to see really compelling evidence that someone could look at a Soviet document, for example, reproduce it afterwards. But I firmly
you think
believe
people
that
can
these
like
people
go
are
walk around
experiencing
New
it.
York City or something?
I've talked to people who've done it. Yeah.
Crazy. What's that like for them? It's like, it's pretty vivid.
It's spiritual. It's revelatory. It's so vivid. They describe feeling the wind on their face. They have tactile experiences.
Fuck that, dude.
It's wild.
I think I would go mentally.
I mean, the mind is incredibly powerful. Like these are, these are for all intents and purposes, in their own perception, these are real experiences.
I want to go visit a Diddy party, dude.
I worry about going there.
Yeah. Open the door. Oh, God. You open another one, dude. They're all Diddy parties. That shit, dude, is like so scary to me, man. Because like I want to do that, but then I think if I did it, I'd be like, I don't want to ever do that again.
It's scary. Yeah. It's scary. Yeah.
Those religious experiences, dude. Like even growing up in, this is so funny. Growing up in like church, I went to like a summer camp for like Christian kids. And they try to get like, because evangelicals believe in speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
So they try to get like all the kids to speak in tongues at the end of the weekend. Yeah. And I for real thought I spoke in tongues, dude. And I felt like weird.
Yeah.
And then I was like, got older and I was like, that was just like an environmental religious experience. That was crazy. But I remember like a guy putting his hand on me and like praying over me. And I felt crazy, dude. Yeah. Like I felt like a spiritual experience for sure. But then you get older and you're like, oh, you have those through a meditation process or through something like that. But that kind of stuff, man, if I astral projected, you're never seeing me again, dude. I'm just in my bedroom the rest of the day, astrally projecting the whole time. That shit is scary too, though. I feel
it's very scary.
You got to be really mentally stable probably to like go do that and then like handle that well.
Are there any of those experiences growing up? Because I was similarly raised religious, and I remember at the time I fought my parents viciously all the time. I never wanted to go to church. I hated doing it.
Sucks.
But I look back now and it's like, there was I was taught some like morals and values, and I think I probably not explicitly live by the teachings of the Bible or something, but I still have a lot of that morality. I still agree in the broad strokes of what I was taught. Are there any things that you've been able to take from your childhood experience and bring to your adulthood?
Just recently, man, I've been like kind of understanding that, and I kind of mentioned it before that like when they say don't sin, I used to think that meant like, or you'll go to hell. For the first time in my life, I understand, which it sounds stupid to get to this at like 25, but like, no, if you're doing bad things, like stuff will just start to cave in because everything I think is about a community, and to live in a community and be a successful person, you kind of need to follow some rules. So for me, I look back at that as like, there's a pretty decent code, you know what I mean? Of like how to live your life so that your life's easier. Really, that's what it is. Like it's to make your life easier, which something that's super interesting. I'm getting too deep here, but whenever Jesus heals somebody in the Bible, he after he does that, he says to them, he says, don't sin anymore. And it's always like what he's saying to them an impossible thing. But he's given them a piece of advice that's like, don't sin anymore. And I've always like wondered, what does that possibly mean? Because why would he say that to them? No, but then also say that like, you're all sinners, you're always going to sin. That's like the whole point of Jesus is to like get rid of our sins. But then he's telling people don't sin anymore. And it's kind of just like a piece of advice of like, your life is going to be easier, I think, if you're just not lying, cheating, stealing, committing adultery on your wife or something like that. It's all like to just make this process kind of an easier go. And for the first time in my life, like leaving it and then coming back to it and being like, okay, I'm not going to try to speak in tongues, but maybe, you know what I mean? Like, don't be shitty to everybody in your life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've like been learning is like, treat people just how you'd want to be treated and see if your life is better. And I had to do a lot of drugs and kind of like get really, really to a low point to come to a place of like, okay, everything I thought that I'm doing is incorrect. And maybe my parents aren't completely stupid. Maybe they have a couple good points. And that's like changed my life. But it sucks that I had to go, I feel like kind of dumb because I had to go through all these things to like figure that out.
Yeah.
But my parents told me like, hey, don't smoke weed. Because in their minds, weed is just as bad as like doing heroin in their minds. So then you smoke weed, and I've never done heroin, but I've gotten pretty close. But like you smoke weed, and I got arrested for weed when I was like 17. And my parents kicked me out of my house because in their minds, they're like,
Really?
You're doing an insane narcotic right now. So,
Which is legal now.
Like, dude, I had the cop that arrested me goes to my stepdad's church, which is crazy.
Oh,
dude,
wow.
I've had to see him a couple times, and it's been like super awkward. I want to be like, yo, dude, remember when you fucking almost ruined my life?
Jesus.
Yeah. But like when you're told that and then you get arrested for weed, you're like, I had no education of like their reaction to weed is the same as their reaction to cocaine or Percocets or, you know what I mean? Any kind of medication.
I mean, also it's then like, well, why not do cocaine and Percocets if I'm getting punished for it anyway?
Yeah. That's what I did.
And then you go to NA and it's like, oh, now we're going to do the Lord's Prayer. Everybody join hands. And it's like, fuck.
That kept me
back here
in like a really bad cycle because I was trying to get sober. I ended up going to a rehab. But I would go to, some people would invite me to these rooms, and it was like, I was like, this is religion, dude. This is religion to the core. You can say it's not, but then they open the book and they're like, the first step is like second step is find a higher power. And I'm like,
right.
This is religion, dude. And then they all check in on each other and they call each other and they like have a little family. I'm like, this is just exactly what I came from.
Yeah, it's a little culty. It's a little
100% a cult. Yeah. Now I still go to meetings sometimes whenever I feel like I'm getting a little crazy. I just need to hear some people be like, who are in it right now, you know what I mean? Who are like dealing with that addiction. I just need to hear them say that. Yeah. But yeah, man, it's like, I don't know, that stuff still, man. I wish I didn't have that like resistance to it.
Well, you know what? Better to be in a cult than be dead.
Hey, I don't know.
Easy choice.
I don't know, dude.
No?
Some cults are weird, bro. Some cults are really weird. I thought about joining Scientology for a while because I was like, if I am going to pick a religion,
that would be great
one
for
that's
your
gonna
career.
Help.
You could,
That was my thought. But then it gets weird. And you know what's weird about AA too is something that really kept me away from it is like, you know the steps? There's 12 steps. I've been going through the steps.
Yeah.
But then there's a step where you're like, you have to confess your wrongs to another person who's your sponsor. Uh-huh. And I was like, that's straight out of the book of Scientology. Because Scientology have a point to get to a higher level, you have to like sit and tell someone everything bad you've ever done. And then they like use that as power against you. So I was like,
blackmail.
That's totally Scientology. I was like, this is cult right here. This is a first thing of a cult. And they're like, don't go. My sponsor was like, you can go say it to somebody else. I haven't yet. I gotta go say my wrongs. Maybe I'll do them right now. I'm kidding. No.
Starting with this meme account I used to run at age 11. Yeah.
It would just be porn, dude. I'm just gonna go have to sit with a priest and be like, I watch a lot of porn, dude. He's gonna be like, ah.
Me too. Yeah.
Yo, dude.
I was speaking for the priest. I've been doing no FAP. I take that very seriously.
No FAP?
Yes.
For how long?
I did 90 days once.
How'd you do that?
Cold showers. It was difficult.
Cold showers?
Yeah.
Every time you want to jerk off, you go take a cold shower?
Yes.
For real?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I take the self-experimentation stuff seriously. You know, people try to reprogram their brains through YouTube videos. Like all of these things that people say they tried online.
Yeah.
I do all of them. I do it like by the book just to see how it affects me. You know, I want to know how people's belief systems are shaped. Well, yeah, they make it so you're not going to jerk off.
That's so funny, dude. That's so funny. They go, you have a boner? Take a cold shower.
It's more difficult than it seems.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did that. I did all of the programs. I sunned my balls. I avoided xenoestrogens, phytoestrogens.
Can you back up for a
ball
second?
sunning, where you expose your testicles to the sunlight to increase your vitamins.
Dude, I tried doing that and I got arrested, dude. Do you expose your balls to sunlight?
Yeah. There's some study in the 1930s that direct exposure to, I don't even know what doctor was performing this, but they were taking a UV lamp. They were taking a UV lamp and shining it on direct portions of the body. So they put it on the arm, they put it on the leg. One of those options was the balls. Exactly. Yeah. And they cover everything else, so it's not exposed. And they're looking at your vitamin levels based on this targeted exposure on specific areas. And The people who were exposed on the balls had a hormonal precursor, which is not exactly testosterone, but is one of the building blocks that leads to it. That's a very short explanation. Increased by 200% within the period that they were exposed to this light. So what people like to extrapolate now is that if you sun your balls, right, like go outside and just expose yourself to the world.
But how do you do that?
Without getting arrested.
How did you do that?
I had a window in my apartment that was not visible from other... I'm trying to describe this. So I was basically like below a ledge here, but the sun could still get me, but I wouldn't be visible. At you. No, it looked out into a courtyard that was not visible. I started thinking, it was like, okay, I've spent enough time on the internet. Like there's a lot of these like forum, like self-improvement rituals that are just an elaborate form of hazing. Right? It's like, oh, this person isn't here. It's like, you got to eat, 4 raw onions a day if you want to max your T levels or whatever. Yeah. And then like kids will literally eat 4 fucking raw onions, puke at school, and they'll be like, guys, I've been doing it, but I feel so sick. It's like, it's just like, it's hazing the new guy. Dude, I love that. And so I thought, oh, this is all a strategy. Like it's totally a meme. There's no science behind it. And they're just trying to get people to embarrass themselves. Well, no, I did it. Just to.
Did you put sunscreen on?
Even if it was, no, not at all. Okay. Even if it was a total meme, like I'd also drank the raw onion juice. I did that too. Yeah. Like if it's real, if it works funny, or not, like I'm doing it to get myself in the headspace of how these people view the world by like eating their same diet, doing their same activities, go lift, like whatever, all the stuff. NoFap was one of those things. Ball sunning was one of those things. So,
and even the cold shower though thing, that's not a prank, right?
Cold shower reduces your cortisol levels, and cortisol levels allow you to build more muscle, and they prevent muscle wasting. So if you have very high stress and you're dieting, you're going to lose a lot more lean mass. You're going to lose a lot more muscle. And similarly, if you're trying to put on mass, you'll just retain it better if you have low stress levels. So people do either a full cold shower or they do a hot shower, and then the last like minute is cold. It's very uncomfortable. It's like I don't recommend it. I find it really unpleasant. I don't do that now in my everyday life. I learned stuff from doing that process. But I'm not drinking raw onion juice every day.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm just eating eggs. I'm like having a high protein, high fat, high cholesterol diet, and like that works for me. That's fine.
I'm glad you told me it was a prank, because I would have been later today just sitting on my window, dude. I would have rubbed sunscreen on him too.
Well, the study is from like 1920, 1930, something like that, and there's without getting like too in the weeds on this, there are tons and tons of precursors for what are called hormonal cascades, where you have to make this, which then makes this, which then makes this, which eventually makes testosterone. And if you're trying to increase your T levels, there's just normal dietary things you can do, like eat 6 eggs a day, have like a big, 5 omelet breakfast. That'll do more for you than the sunning the ball stuff. It's basically nonsense. It's clickbait. It's very silly.
The testosterone stuff is weird. I went to a doctor maybe like a month ago because I thought this is weird to talk about, but I thought I was too horny.
Yeah.
I was really like, because I'm always trying to have sex with my girlfriend, and sometimes she just wants to chill and like watch TV. And I'm like, if we're around each other, I'm like, let's have sex. And she's like, no, you're insane. Like we don't have to have sex all the time. So she was like, I think there's something wrong with your testosterone. So I was like, you're actually right, because I don't like think other people are this horny. So I went to a doctor and he did like the test, and he was like, yeah, no, you're just 25 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was like worried. I was like, I think I have a medical condition going on. And he was like, no, dude, you're 25. And he was like, it's going to slow down when you're older. So I was like, okay, that's pretty sick. But I really thought, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm too horny. And apparently I'm just a young guy. I was kind of bummed. I was like,
glad
fuck,
you're in good
dude.
health. I'm glad.
No, dude. I was like,
it's working.
I want it taken away.
You want it taken away?
Yeah, I want to fuck like once a week.
Okay.
It's the goal for my life.
You want to, you can do intermittent NoFap. You could do 6 days on, 1 day off. Try creating some artificial scarcity. Be like, look, Jeff, we can only do this on Saturday. That's the only day.
What if she wants to do it though throughout the week? Supposed to say no?
Oh, you're stimulating demand by withholding supply.
I don't know about that, dude.
Don't worry, all of economics is made up. It doesn't make sense. Tell me about the place you grew up. Tell me about, like, if you go back there now, I don't know if you visit home, you visit your family.
Every now and then I'll go back.
Yeah. What kind of election signs people have?
Oh, there's Trump signs, yeah. There was like a jail Hillary sign for sure for a while. Yeah, I go back there and they're like, Trump.
I'm still holding out hope for that one.
For Hillary to go to jail?
Yeah.
Bro, she's an old lady, dude. Let's not let her go to
she
jail.
just, illegally spent these campaign funds on the Steele dossier. I just really think that we need to, bring this thing to completion and prosecute people who misspend campaign funds.
Really?
Yeah, felony conviction would be appropriate.
That's the one that, like, even though they're going Trump for like the same shit, I kind of relate to that, dude. I feel like if I had campaign funds, like, I would be spending them on anything but the campaign. So I don't know.
He did it. That's the long conspiracy.
Did he use them to pay a porn star?
Well,
to cover up.
He spent it that way, and he took the felony charge to set a precedent for when he wins in 24 to then prosecute Hillary.
Oh, wow.
That's what they're saying.
It's kind of a genius, dude.
He was 3D chess.
Yeah, that's so smart, actually.
You set her up.
That's good. That's really good. Dude, that almost makes me kind of fucking be like, Biden's not thinking that far ahead.
He's not thinking more than, he's not thinking to the end of his sentence,
That's so crazy. Yeah, but I'm born in this town called Yarnell. Born at home. I think that's where a lot of my problems start. So at-home birth. Because my family didn't have insurance, so I was born at home.
I see.
And my mom had already popped out like 6 kids before me, so she was like, I got this. So they had me at home. And then I kind of just grew up there, like going to church, homeschooled. It's a big thing too.
Wow.
So not a lot of outside influence. And then we moved because my dad stopped being a pastor and he went to go become a teacher. And he started preaching at prisons. And then he passed away. And we moved back to Wickenburg, which was like, I kind of got out. I had like black friends for the first time. And then in Wickenburg, no black people at all. It's like hyper small town conservative, like white people, white trash too. Not even like uppity white people, like just like trailer park white trash. And we lived there I lived there till I got kicked out when I was like 17. And the town is so conservative. There's like the bull riding capital of Arizona, that type of shit. It's they bleed Republican. Like you can't be anything else there. There's really not a lot of like gay people. It's not diverse at all. And in that culture.
Is that why your sister left? What did you say? She went to college early?
Yeah, she from the beginning, she just wanted to be, even before my dad died, she's a little older than me, she wanted to just be like away from it all because she kind of just thought it was crazy before I did, but I didn't really get a lot of experience to get out before that, but yeah, man, it's like going back is weird. Now my family, we don't talk about politics. We can't. I don't even let myself get in that conversation because it's just like a pointless endeavor. You know what I mean? Like asking them, who are you voting for? And they're like, oh, Trump, of course. You're just like, okay. And from their perspective with what they believe too, it's like, why wouldn't they vote for that guy? Well, if you consider their beliefs.
Yeah. And I mean, in fairness, the Democrats have done very little for people who live in red states.
Absolutely nothing. And they think they're stupid.
Trying to win them over.
They think they're really stupid.
Yeah,
which is not cool. It's like, why would you vote for somebody that thinks you're stupid?
Yeah. Some of the stupidest people in our society have the most expensive degrees. I can tell you that much.
Oh yeah, dude.
I've met a lot of anonymous meme posters who have a more realistic grasp of the world than many people who work in elite positions of journalism and academies and universities and so on.
And they don't realize really obvious things because I don't know if they can.
No, their whole worldview is tied up in it.
Yeah, they can't acknowledge certain things because then they're out of a job. Like it's very much like you have to believe this way to work in this. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
It's just so crazy to me. I talked to my brother, and he was in the military, and he says he would vote Democrat in a second if they would just chill on the guns, which is interesting. And then I talked to my parents, and they're like, we would vote Democrat in a second if they would just relax on one or two things. So they're losing a victory every single time, economically. Like the country, I mean, I'm a person that believes that we should have healthcare. You know what I mean? And if they actually want to get these things done, if that's the priority, you can't concede. They would win every election if they just stop talking about 2% of the population and actually went for what my parents are and stuff.
Why? Because that sounds so incredibly common sense. Why is that so difficult to communicate to people who are in the entertainment industry, in the media, in the academy? How can you be a scholarly, prestigious university professor and think that you're going to pass massive democratic reforms that exclude half of the population? Why?
I think that they don't actually, I think that people in Wickenburg, Arizona have a better understanding of people in New York than people in New York have a better understanding of them. they don't even know. They have this idea of them that they're like stupid and like unable to speak to, and they're all racist and they're all, you know, bigots of some kind, and that they won't move around in the aisle, and they actually don't want economic change, and they don't want these things. You know what I mean? They just think they're dumb, and they don't spend a minute to know them. They've grown up in these little tight communities, much like I was when I was a kid, and they've never left to talk to anybody else. And not that you would change your beliefs completely, but you would be like a little more sympathetic to be like, wait, the reason why they're voting for Trump isn't because they're insane. It's because every person you've given them before has done nothing for them at all. Absolutely nothing. Like, and that's just a fact. And you can be like, oh, well, you know, they want to, you know, they want to stop all these bad things. My family would give up the immigration thing, like stop being upset about immigration, if they felt like they had good jobs and they had a president that cared about them. Like, my family will speak highly of Clinton because they're like, the economy was good. At the end of the day, I feel like they just care about the economy and maybe one or two other things.
Yeah, it's well, it starts to get complicated there because Clinton was the first of what we call the third way Democrats, where the de-alignment of, previously, back up for a second. So the Republican Party consists of manufacturing, of what we call productive capital, and regional capital. There's two interests that, you know, form a coalition for the party. Democrats consist of finance capital and then all of these other little things, right? So what has happened previous to Clinton is that there was a big labor coalition that was part of the Democratic Party, and the phenomena of like the past 40 years, but very pronounced in the last 30 since Clinton and so on, is that the portion of labor representation within the Democratic Party has just receded to such 100%. An extent that it's basically non-existent. Yeah. And so we've seen people who, this is the trend across all of the advanced world, across Hungary, Germany, the UK, across too many countries to name, basically anywhere in the advanced world, is that the parties that used to vote for labor, the constituencies that used to vote for labor, have now drifted towards right-wing populism. Let's say there's a photo taken of you, you're getting arrested at the BLM protests. Yeah. And your 11-year-old self is posting it on Facebook. What would you caption that?
Oh, that's so funny. What would he caption that? I think he would be like, wow, the future me became gay or something like that. Definitely. He'd be like, well, I didn't know I was gay in the future. Definitely what the 11-year-old me would say, for sure. 100%. But yeah, I don't know if you feel the same way. You look at your life and you're like, you look back and you're like, oh, old me would have been like, I think old me would think I'm sick now. I think 11-year-old me would be like, yo, 25-year-old Peter is the man. But like 17-year-old Peter, you know, 19-year-old Peter, loser, dude, for sure. I think he would be like, you got a girlfriend and you get to fuck her? That's sick.
That's all you need.
That's pretty fire.
Yeah. Peter, thank you so much.
Dude, thank you.
For coming on the podcast, for talking with us today. Your experience is just, it's such an interesting story. I relate to so many parts of it. I'm so grateful for you sharing this with us today. And you're fucking hilarious.
Thank you,
Your work is great. I love all of your stuff. Everybody here at the podcast has just been really impressed by your work. So thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. You're the man.